Vincent Chun pressed his forehead against the cold glass of his penthouse window, watching the city lights blur through the falling snow. Christmas Eve in Manhattan was supposed to be magical, but all he felt was the crushing weight of silence. At 32 years old, he built a tech empire that made him richer than he'd ever dreamed. His apartment overlooked Central Park, cost more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes, and felt emptier than a tomb. 6 months ago, 3 days after burying his mother, he'd done something he still couldn't quite believe. Sitting alone in this same apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture that nobody sat on, he'd opened his laptop and typed words he never thought he'd search. International marriage agency. The kind of thing desperate men did, the kind of thing his business partners would mock him for. But grief and loneliness made people do strange things. He told himself it wasn't about love. Love was a fantasy, something for romantic movies and people who hadn't learned yet that everyone eventually left. No, he just needed someone to share space with, someone to make dinner with occasionally, someone so that when he came home at night, the lights would already be on, and another heartbeat would exist within these walls. The agency had hundreds of profiles. Most felt transactional, cold, exactly what he expected. But then he saw her essay. Nia Richardson, 26 years old, from a small town in Georgia he'd never heard of. She didn't write about wanting luxury or travel or any of the things others mentioned. She wrote about books, about how reading had saved her life as a kid, how she spent her weekends volunteering at a community center teaching children to read, because literacy was power and power was freedom. They exchanged letters for months. Actual letters, not emails. Her handwriting was careful and neat, like she'd practiced each word. She was thoughtful, asked him real questions about his life, not his money. She told him about raising her 3 younger siblings after their parents died, about working double shifts while getting her GED, about dreams she'd put on hold so her brother and sisters could eat. He suggested video calls a few times. She always had excuses. Bad internet, long work hours, her phone was old and didn't handle video well. He didn't push. Maybe he liked the mystery. Maybe he was afraid that seeing each other would make it too real, force him to confront what he was actually doing. The phone call from his driver, Robert, came just after 7 in the evening. "Mr. Chun, I'm at JFK. There's a situation." Vincent's stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" "There's a young woman here. She says she's Nia Richardson, says she's supposed to come home with me. But, sir, I think there's been a mistake. She doesn't look like someone who would be. I mean, she looks like she's homeless." Security almost called the police. Put her on the phone. There was a pause, some muffled conversation, then a voice came through. Soft but steady. "Hello. Is this Vincent?" "Yes. Are you Nia?" "I am. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have warned you. I was afraid if you knew, you wouldn't want me to come." His chest tightened. "Knew what?" "That I have nothing. That every dollar I saved went to keeping my grandmother alive and my siblings fed. I'm wearing the only coat I own, and it's falling apart. My shoes have holes. Everything I have fits in one bag, and the bag has tears in it. Your driver thinks I'm here to rob you or something." Vincent closed his eyes. "Put Robert back on, sir? Bring her home, Robert, now, and treat her with respect." An hour and 20 minutes. That's how long Vincent paced his apartment, his mind racing. He'd prepared for someone nervous, maybe a little out of place in his wealthy world. He'd prepared for awkwardness. He hadn't prepared for poverty so deep that his driver mistook her for homeless. When the elevator doors opened to his private lobby, time seemed to slow down. Mia stepped out, and Vincent forgot how to breathe. She wore a coat that might have been brown or black or gray, impossible to tell because it was patched with different fabrics and held together with safety pins. Her jeans were so worn, the knees had been sewn closed multiple times. Her shoes were sneakers with duct tape, covering the places where the soles had separated. But that's not what stopped him. It was her face. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or styling. Beautiful in the way a person is when they've survived things that should have broken them. Her dark skin glowed under the lobby lights despite her exhaustion. Her eyes met his, and he saw intelligence there, wariness, fear maybe, but also strength that wouldn't bend. She stood next to Robert, who looked uncomfortable and apologetic. Behind the security desk, the night guard was watching with obvious suspicion. Christmas decorations sparkled all around them, elegant wreaths and twinkling lights that probably cost more than everything Nia owned. She looked completely out of place, and yet she held herself with dignity that made Vincent's heart hurt. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, but she didn't lower her eyes. "I know this isn't what you expected. If you want me to leave, I understand. You don't owe me anything. I'll take the next flight back." Vincent crossed the marble floor between them. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in the lines around her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped that torn duffel bag like it contained everything precious in the world. "Because it probably did. How long since you ate?" he asked. She blinked, surprised. "I had a sandwich on the plane. Before that." Her pause told him everything. "Yesterday morning." "Robert, you can go." "Thank you." Vincent picked up her bag. It weighed almost nothing. "Come on. Let's get you fed." She followed him into the elevator, and when the doors closed, she finally spoke. "I need you to understand something. My grandmother has been sick for 2 years. Stage 4 cancer, no insurance. My siblings are 14, 16, and 17. I've been taking care of them since I was 19. Every dollar I earned went to rent, food, her medications, their school supplies. I've been working 3 jobs just to keep us afloat." The elevator climbed silently. Vincent watched the numbers light up. "When I saw your ad at the agency," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't use a marriage for money. But I was drowning, Vincent. The bank was about to take our house. My grandmother needed treatments we couldn't afford. My sister needed books for school, and I had to choose between her education and electricity." Her voice cracked. "I sent you letters and hoped you wouldn't notice how desperate I was. The money you sent for travel expenses, the advance you gave me, I sent it all to them. That's why I look like this. Because I chose them over looking presentable for you." The elevator opened to his apartment. Warm light spilled out, revealing polished floors and expensive art and furniture that cost more than most cars. Nia stepped out slowly, like she was entering a museum she wasn't supposed to touch. "I don't expect you to go through with this," she said. "I know you wanted someone who could fit into your world. Someone elegant who knew how to act at fancy parties. I can't be that person. But I promise you, if you give me a chance, I'll work hard. I'll learn. I'll never embarrass you on purpose. I just need my siblings to be okay." Vincent set down her bag and turned to face her fully. Behind her, through the massive windows, snow continued to fall over the glittering city. She looked small and tired and scared, but not broken. Never broken. "Welcome home, Nia," he said simply. "Let's get you something to eat, and then we'll figure out the rest." She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. In that moment, Vincent realized his carefully planned arrangement had just become something far more complicated than he'd ever imagined. The first morning, Vincent woke to find Nia already awake at 5 in the morning, curled up in his library with a book bigger than her head. She'd borrowed one of his old sweatshirts that hung on her like a dress. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was so absorbed in reading that she didn't hear him approach. "What are you reading?" he asked, making her jump. She showed him the cover. "Advanced Economics Theory. I hope you don't mind. I've always wanted to understand how money really works. Not just budgeting for groceries, but the big picture stuff. Why some communities stay poor while others thrive." He poured himself coffee, watching her. Most people would sleep in after traveling across the country. I've been working 3 jobs for 7 years. My body doesn't know how to sleep past 5 anymore. She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. Besides, I figure I should learn as much as I can while I'm here. However long that is. The annual Christmas party at his business partner's house happened 3 days after Nia arrived. Vincent had borrowed clothes for her from a personal shopper, simple but expensive. She looked beautiful, but he could see her discomfort in the way she tugged at the dress. Unused to fabric that cost more than a month's rent, his business partner, Derek, took one look at Nia and smirked. "So this is the mail-order bride?" "Vincent, I thought you were joking." Nia's spine straightened, but she didn't respond. Vincent felt his jaw tighten. "Derek, meet Nia. Nia, this is someone whose opinion matters less than he thinks." The party was brutal. Derek's wife, Celine, asked pointed questions designed to embarrass. "So Nia, where did you go to college?" Knowing full well Nia hadn't. "Oh, you didn't? How interesting." "I went to Yale. But education isn't for everyone, I suppose." Vincent watched Nia handle it with grace he didn't know existed. "You're right," she said calmly. "Education isn't for everyone. I was too busy raising 3 kids and taking care of my dying grandmother to sit in classrooms. But I read every book I could get from the library. Taught myself 3 languages from textbooks. Not as impressive as Yale, obviously, but it's what I could do." Celine's smile froze. Someone nearby choked on their drink, trying not to laugh. But the real problem was Vanessa. His ex-girlfriend, a trust fund baby who dumped him 2 years ago because he worked too much. She'd spent the past year trying to get back together, and Nia's existence clearly offended her on a personal level. "That dress is lovely, Nia," Vanessa said sweetly over dinner. "Is it from Target?" "I love how affordable fashion has become." The dress cost $3,000. Everyone at the table knew it. Vanessa was just being cruel. Nia smiled. "I actually don't know where it's from." Vincent's shopper picked it out. "I've never spent more than $30 on clothes in my life, so everything feels expensive to me. But you'd know more about fashion than I would." "Clearly," Vanessa laughed. "You didn't even know how to hold your fork properly when you sat down. I had to stop myself from correcting you." The table went quiet. Vincent opened his mouth, but Nia spoke first. "You're absolutely right. I was holding it wrong. Thank you for noticing, but not embarrassing me publicly." "Oh, wait." She set down her fork. "You know what's funny? In the neighborhood where I grew up, we worried about having food on the fork, not which hand held it. Different priorities, I guess." She stood up, excused herself to the bathroom, and didn't come back for 15 minutes. Vincent found her on the back porch, arms wrapped around herself in the cold. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have warned you. These people are sharks. It's not your fault." She wiped her eyes quickly. "I knew this would be hard. I just thought I'd be tougher. You were tough. Vanessa's been like that since prep school. Nobody ever calls her on it. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm here because of a contract, not because I belong in your world. I need to remember that." Something in her words stung. "What if I don't want you to remember that?" She looked at him, confused. Before he could explain, Derek came outside to drag them back in for dessert the next week. Things shifted in ways Vincent didn't expect. His housekeeper, Rosa, had been with him for 5 years. She was quiet, efficient, and he barely knew anything about her personal life. Until Nia asked. He came home one evening to find them both at the kitchen table, papers spread everywhere. Rosa's daughter was applying to colleges, and the essay was giving them trouble. She wants to study engineering, Nia was saying. So talk about building things. Like, remember when you and your brothers built that treehouse with scraps from the construction site? That's engineering. That's problem solving with limited resources. Rosa was crying happy tears. I didn't know how to help her. I never went to college. Neither did I, Nia said gently. But I know how to tell a story. And your daughter's story is powerful. Vincent stood in the doorway, unnoticed. He'd lived in this apartment for 3 years and never thought to ask Rosa about her family. The essay got the daughter a full scholarship to Columbia. Rosa hugged Nia so hard she lifted her off the ground. Vincent wrote a recommendation letter, but they all knew it was Nia's work that made the difference. She changed other things too. Small things. The apartment had always felt like a magazine spread, beautiful but untouchable. Nia bought cheap flowers from the bodega on the corner and put them in vases. She left little notes around the apartment. Thank you for the coffee, on the kitchen counter. This book changed my life, stuck in a novel she'd borrowed. She cooked dinner most nights. Not fancy food, but the kind of meals that smelled like home. Fried chicken and collard greens, spaghetti with garlic bread, pot roast that fell apart with a fork. Vincent found himself leaving work earlier just to eat with her. My mama taught me to cook before she died, Nia told him one night, stirring a pot of soup. She said a good meal brings people together better than anything else. I think she was right. They ate together at the kitchen island instead of his formal dining room. She asked about his day, actually listened to the answer, offered thoughts that were surprisingly insightful. She understood business instinctively, probably from years of stretching dollars beyond reason. You're thinking about the Singapore deal wrong, she said one night, after he'd complained about negotiations. You're offering money, but what they really want is respect. Partnership, not charity. Nobody wants to feel bought. She was right. He adjusted his approach and closed the deal within a week. His grandmother came to visit without warning, which was her style. Eleanor Chun was 83, 5 feet tall, and terrified grown men. She'd been married 3 times, buried all 3 husbands, and built half the family fortune through pure determination and ruthlessness. Vincent loved her desperately and knew better than to lie to her. She showed up during dinner, let herself in with the key she'd never returned, and found Vincent and Nia laughing over takeout Thai food at the kitchen counter. So, Eleanor said, setting down her purse, this is the girl. Nia stood immediately, wiping her hands on a towel. Mrs. Chun, it's an honor to meet you. Sit down, child. I'm not that scary. She was absolutely that scary. Vincent, get me some tea. I want to talk to your wife alone. Vincent looked at Nia, who nodded slightly. He reluctantly went to make tea, straining to hear their conversation from the kitchen. My grandson is a fool sometimes, Eleanor said bluntly. Smart with money, stupid with people. So I'll ask you plainly, what do you want from him? Honestly? Nia's voice was steady. At first, I wanted my family to survive. That's why I came. But now, after being here, I want to be worthy of his kindness. I want to prove I'm more than my circumstances. Why? Because he saw me differently than anyone else ever has. When I showed up in rags, he didn't turn me away. He fed me. He treated me like I mattered. Nobody's done that since my parents died. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. You love him yet? I don't know. I respect him. I'm grateful to him. Maybe that could become love. Or maybe I'll leave when the contract is up, and he'll forget about me. But while I'm here, I'll give him honesty and effort. That's all I have to offer." Vincent stood frozen by the kitchen door, tea forgotten. "Good," Eleanor said. "That's better than most wives can promise. Now, tell me about these siblings of yours. Vincent says you raised them yourself." They talked for 2 hours. By the time Eleanor left, she kissed Nia's forehead like she'd known her for years. At the door, she grabbed Vincent's arm. "Don't be stupid with this one," she whispered. "She's real. Everything else in your life is bought and paid for, but she's real. Don't let her go because you're afraid." After she left, Vincent found Nia cleaning up the kitchen, humming softly to herself. She'd fit into his life so easily, filled spaces he hadn't known were empty. And for the first time since this arrangement began, he wondered what would happen when the year was up and she was free to leave. The thought terrified him more than he wanted to admit. 3 weeks into January, Vincent woke up at 2 in the morning to strange sounds coming from the kitchen. Crying, muffled but desperate, the kind that came from somewhere deep and painful. He found Nia sitting on the floor with her back against the cabinets, a crumpled letter in her hands, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Hey, hey," he dropped down beside her, not thinking, just moving on instinct. "What happened?" She couldn't speak at first, just shook her head and handed him the letter. It was from a social worker in Georgia, formal and cold in that way official letters always are. Her grandmother had passed away 4 days ago. Pneumonia, complicated by the cancer. There had been a small funeral. Her siblings, Terrell, Maya, and Jordan, had been placed in emergency foster care. They were being split up into different homes because no single family could take all 3. "I can't even go back for the funeral," Nia whispered, her voice raw. "It already happened. I can't afford the flight, and even if I could, what good would it do? She's already in the ground. My babies are scattered across the county, and I'm here in this fancy apartment, pretending to be someone I'm not." Vincent's chest felt tight. "The money I gave you, the advance payment that should have been enough for, I sent it all to them." She wasn't angry, just broken. Every penny went to keeping the lights on and buying groceries and paying for Grandma's last round of medications, even though we knew they wouldn't save her. "I kept just enough to get here, and that's it. I chose this, Vincent. I signed that contract, knowing I'd probably never see them again. I traded my family for money to keep them alive." The weight of what she'd done hit him like a truck. While he'd been congratulating himself for being generous, for giving some poor girl a chance, she'd been making impossible choices. She'd sacrificed everything, not for herself, but for 3 kids who needed her. "How old are they again?" he asked quietly. "Jordan just turned 14. Maya's 16. Terrell's 17, graduating this year if he can stay focused with all this chaos." She wiped her eyes roughly. "I raised them since I was 19. Their parents, my aunt and uncle, died in a car accident. I was the only family they had besides Grandma, and she was already sick. So I dropped out of community college, got 3 jobs, and figured it out. And now they're with strangers, and I'm not there, and they must think I abandoned them." Vincent stood up, grabbed his phone, and started making calls. It was 2 in the morning, but he had people who answered anyway, because that's what money bought you. Lawyers, travel agents, a private investigator he'd used for business deals. "What are you doing?" Nia asked, struggling to her feet. "Fixing this." "You can't just fix this, Vincent. This isn't a business problem." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something he'd been blind to before. She wasn't just some girl he'd hired to fill space in his apartment. She was someone who'd been carrying the world on her shoulders since she was barely an adult herself. Someone who'd made sacrifices he couldn't even imagine. Someone stronger than anyone he'd ever met. Watch me, he said. By 8 in the morning, he had a plan. By noon, he had it in motion. He made calls, pulled strings, threw money at problems until they disappeared. His lawyer in Georgia started paperwork. His travel agent booked flights. His investigator found exactly where each kid had been placed and started making arrangements. Nia watched all of this in stunned silence, sitting at the kitchen island with cold coffee she'd forgotten to drink. "Vincent, what are you doing?" she asked again when he finally sat down. "Your siblings are flying here tomorrow." "All 3 of them?" "I've got emergency custody approved. Temporary guardianship transferred to you with me as co-sponsor since we're married. I bought a house in their town in Georgia, put it in a trust for when they're ready to go back if they want. And we're flying down today for your grandmother's burial." "What burial?" "She's already buried." "Not properly. I made arrangements for her to be moved to the cemetery plot she wanted, the one next to your aunt and uncle. We're having a real service, with flowers and music, and everything she deserved. You, me, and your siblings. A chance to say goodbye, right?" Nia stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. "You can't just do all that." "I already did." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "This wasn't part of our deal. You don't owe me this." Vincent reached across the counter and took her hand. It was the first time he'd really touched her beyond handshakes and polite gestures. Her fingers were cold, and she was shaking. "Maybe I don't owe you," he said. "But somewhere in the past few weeks, you stopped being a contract to me. You make me laugh. You make my apartment feel like a home. You're kind to Rosa, and you read economics theory at 5 in the morning, and you put flowers in vases, and you're raising 3 kids who aren't even yours because you loved them enough to give up your whole life. So no, I don't owe you. I want to do this. Let me do this." She started crying again, but different this time. Not the desperate sobs from before, but something softer, more overwhelmed than destroyed. "I don't know how to thank you." "Then don't. Just pack a bag. We leave in 3 hours." The flight to Georgia was quiet. Nia dozed against the window, exhausted from crying and relief and too many emotions to process. Vincent worked on his laptop, but kept glancing at her. This woman who'd walked into his life in rags and somehow made him feel more human than he had in years. The funeral was small. Just the 2 of them, a pastor who'd known the family and a handful of neighbors who'd loved Nia's grandmother. Nia stood at the grave and said goodbye to the woman who'd helped raise her. And Vincent stood beside her, holding her hand, because it felt like the only thing to do. That evening, they met her siblings at a diner near their foster homes. Vincent watched from a booth as 3 teenagers came through the door, looking scared and confused and hopeful all at once. Nia ran to them. Literally ran, nearly knocking over a waitress, and grabbed all 3 of them at once. They held each other like drowning people hold life rafts, and Vincent had to look away because the intimacy of it felt too private to watch. Jordan was tall and skinny, all elbows and knees. Maya had Nia's eyes, fierce and guarded. Terrell was the oldest and clearly trying to be strong for everyone else, but when Nia hugged him, he broke down like a little kid. "You came back," Maya kept saying. "I thought you left us forever." "Never," Nia whispered fiercely. "I would never leave you by choice. Never. I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." When they finally pulled apart, Nia brought them to the booth. "This is Vincent. He's my husband." 3 pairs of suspicious eyes studied him. Terrell spoke first, protective and wary. "You treating her, right?" "I'm trying to," Vincent said honestly. "Because if you're not, I don't care how much money you have. I'll find a way to make you regret it." Vincent liked him immediately. Fair enough. They ate burgers and talked about school and friends and everything the kids had missed. Vincent listened to them tease Nia, watched how she lit up around them, saw the family they'd built from tragedy. When he told them they were flying to New York in the morning, that they'd live with him and Nia, that they could stay as long as they needed, Maya started crying. "For real?" Jordan asked. "We can actually stay together?" "For real," Vincent promised. "Your family. Family stays together." On the plane back to New York the next day, 3 teenagers crashed hard, exhausted from emotion and travel. Nia sat next to Vincent in the row behind them, watching them sleep. "I don't understand you," she said quietly. "You didn't sign up for 3 kids. You signed up for a quiet arrangement with no complications. This is the opposite of that." Vincent thought about his empty apartment that now had life in it, about Naya's laughter over breakfast, and her notes around the house, and how she'd changed everything without trying, about how somewhere in the past month, the walls he'd built around himself had started crumbling. "Maybe I signed up for the wrong thing," he said. "Maybe what I actually needed was complications. The good kind." She reached over and took his hand, laced her fingers through his. They sat like that for the rest of the flight, not talking, just existing together. And Vincent realized that the business deal he'd made out of loneliness had turned into something real, something that terrified and excited him in equal measure. He'd brought her siblings home thinking he was doing her a favor. But watching Nia sleep with her head on his shoulder, surrounded by her family, he knew the truth. She was saving him just as much as he'd saved her. Maybe more. The first week with 3 teenagers in the apartment was chaos. Good chaos, the kind Vincent hadn't experienced since he was a kid himself, but chaos nonetheless. Jordan claimed the guest room with the best view, and immediately covered the walls with basketball posters. Maya turned another room into what she called her art studio, spending hours sketching and painting. Terrell was quieter, more careful, like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Vincent hired tutors to help them catch up on missed schoolwork and enrolled them in good private schools nearby. He expected pushback, maybe some attitude about the rich guy trying to buy their cooperation. Instead, he got thank you notes slipped under his bedroom door, and teenagers who actually showed up for family dinners. "You didn't have to do all this," Terrell said one night after everyone else had gone to bed. He'd found Vincent in the kitchen making coffee. "The schools, the tutors, everything. We could have managed in public school." "I know you could have," Vincent said. "But you shouldn't have to just manage. You should get to thrive." Terrell studied him for a long moment. "You love her, don't you?" "My sister." Vincent wasn't ready for that question. "It's complicated." "Nah, it's simple. Either you do or you don't." Terrell grabbed a soda from the fridge. "For what it's worth, I've never seen her this happy. Not since before our parents died. So whatever this is, don't mess it up." But it was Naya's transformation that really caught Vincent off guard. One morning over breakfast, he slid an envelope across the table to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was an acceptance letter from Columbia University. She looked up, confused. "I didn't apply to Columbia." "I did. On your behalf. You never finished your degree because you were too busy raising kids and working 3 jobs. Now you can. Full scholarship. Everything covered." Her hand started shaking. "Vincent, I can't. Who's going to watch the kids? Cook dinner? I can't just. The kids are in school all day. Rosa's here. I'm here. You've spent 7 years taking care of everyone else. Let someone take care of you for once." She started classes 2 weeks later. Vincent watched her leave that first morning, nervous and excited, carrying a new backpack stuffed with notebooks. She looked young, younger than her 26 years, like she was finally getting to be the person she should have been all along. She threw herself into studying with the same intensity she'd thrown into everything else. Political science major with a minor in social work. She wanted to understand systems. She told Vincent one night, wanted to know why some families fell through the cracks while others had safety nets. I keep thinking about all the families like mine, she said, highlighting passages in a textbook. People working full-time and still can't afford rent. Kids going hungry because their parents have to choose between food and medicine. The system's broken, Vincent. It's designed to keep poor people poor. He'd never thought about it that way. His wealth had always felt earned, deserved. But listening to Nia, seeing the world through her eyes, he started questioning things he'd always accepted. She started volunteering at a literacy center in Harlem 3 afternoons a week. Vincent picked her up once and stood in the doorway watching her work with a group of kids. She was patient and encouraging, treating each child like they mattered, like their success was personal to her. Miss Nia, I can't read this word, a little girl said, frustrated. Yes, you can, Nia said gently. You just haven't figured it out yet. That's different. Let's sound it out together. The girl's face lit up when she got it. Nia high-fived her like she'd just won the lottery. Vincent understood and what made Nia special. She remembered what it felt like to struggle, and she used that memory to help others instead of forgetting it once she had comfort. Their relationship shifted in small ways. Coffee together in the mornings before everyone else woke up. Late-night conversations about her classes and his business deals. She challenged him constantly, never accepting his justifications when he knew deep down they were weak. Explain to me again why your company manufactures in countries with no labor protections, she said one evening, looking up from her homework. It's complicated. Global economics, competitive pricing. It's not complicated. It's cheap. You pay people poverty wages in dangerous conditions because it increases your profit margin. That's not complicated. That's just wrong. He wanted to argue, but she was right. He spent the next month restructuring his supply chain, improving conditions, raising wages. It cost him millions. He didn't care. His board thought he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. The changes she brought weren't just to his business. She questioned everything. Why did he donate to charities that spent more on galas than actual help? Why didn't he know the names of the people who cleaned his building? Why did his friends talk about poor people like they were a different species? You're ruining me for polite society. He joked after she'd called out one of his investors for casual racism at a dinner party. Good, she said, not joking at all. Polite society is overrated when it's built on looking the other way. They started a foundation together. Her idea, his money, their combined vision, focused on keeping families together during financial crisis. Emergency funds for rent and utilities, job training programs, childcare assistance, things that actually helped instead of just making rich people feel charitable. Nia's lived experience made the programs work. She knew what families needed because she'd been that family. Vincent handled the business side, but everyone knew she was the heart of the operation. But not everyone was happy about Nia's presence in Vincent's life. Vanessa had been simmering with resentment for months, and in March, she struck. Photos appeared on gossip websites. Pictures of Nia arriving at the airport that first night, looking homeless and desperate. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire buys bride in rags," and mail-order wife scandal. The story went viral. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded with opinions. Some people defended them, but the hate was louder. Comment sections filled with cruelty. Gold digger, scammer, using him for money. She should be ashamed. Vincent watched Nia read the articles with a frozen expression. She didn't cry, just got very quiet, very small. The kids were upset too, especially when classmates started asking questions. It's not true. Maya said fiercely at dinner. You're not using him. Tell them it's not true. The truth is more complicated than they want to hear, Nia said quietly. I did come here for money. I was desperate, and he offered help, and I took it. Does that make me a bad person? I don't know. But I won't apologize for doing what I had to do to save you three. Vincent took her hand across the table. I'm going to sue them. Every outlet that published those photos without permission. We'll destroy them. Don't. She squeezed his hand. It'll just make it bigger. Let them talk. They'll get bored eventually and move on to the next scandal. But he could see it hurt her. The way she hesitated before leaving the apartment. How she started wearing sunglasses and baseball caps to class. The confidence she'd been building crumbled under the weight of public judgment. His grandmother called, furious. Those vultures. I've got lawyers ready to go. Nia doesn't want to fight it, Vincent said. Then fight it for her. That girl has more dignity in her little finger than Vanessa has in her entire spray-tanned body. Don't let them tear her down. He tried to protect her, but the damage was done. Photographers followed them. Reporters called asking for comments. His business partners questioned whether the scandal would hurt the company. Derek suggested maybe it would be better if Nia kept a lower profile, maybe stayed home instead of going to classes. Vincent told Derek exactly where he could shove his suggestions and lost a business partner in the process. Worth it. Through it all, Nia kept going. Went to classes, studied for exams, volunteered with the kids, showed up for family dinners. But Vincent saw how it wore on her, the constant judgment, the feeling of being watched and found wanting. One night, he found her on the balcony despite the cold, staring out at the city lights. I'm sorry, he said. This is my fault. I should have protected you better. You can't protect me from the truth, she said. I did come here as a mail-order bride. That's what I signed up for. Maybe they're right to judge me. They don't know you. They don't know what you've survived or who you really are. She turned to look at him. Who am I, Vincent? Your wife on paper? Your charity project? The girl you saved from poverty? Because some days I don't know anymore. He wanted to tell her. Wanted to say that she was the best thing that had ever happened to him, that she'd made him see the world differently, that somewhere along the way he'd fallen completely in love with her. But the words stuck in his throat, afraid of what they might mean, afraid of how vulnerable they made him. You're my partner, he said finally, in everything that matters. She smiled, sad and small. For now. Until the contract ends and you're free of this mess. The contract. 6 months left. He'd almost forgotten about it. But clearly she hadn't. 6 months. That's what the contract said. 1 year from the day Nia arrived, she could walk away with everything paid, her siblings secure, no strings attached. Vincent had circled the date on his calendar months ago, back when it seemed so far away. Now it was next Tuesday, and he couldn't sleep. He'd been preparing for weeks. Legal documents drawn up, bank accounts established in her name, a trust fund for each of her siblings' college education, an apartment purchased in her name, fully paid, so she'd never have to worry about housing again. Everything she'd need to build a life on her own terms. He should have been relieved. The arrangement was ending as planned, neat, and clean. Instead, he felt like he was preparing for surgery without anesthesia. Nia had been quieter lately. She still showed up for family dinners, still helped Jordan with his math homework, and praised Maya's latest paintings. But there was a distance in her eyes, like she was already saying goodbye. On Saturday morning, 5 days before the contract ended, Vincent found her packing boxes in her room. His stomach dropped. You're leaving early? The words came out harsher than he intended. She looked up, surprised. No, I'm organizing. The kids and I have accumulated a lot of stuff. I wanted to make it easier when we move out. You're taking them with you? Of course. They're my family. I thought maybe we'd get a place in Queens, somewhere affordable but safe. I've been saving money for my part-time job at the literacy center. Vincent leaned against the doorframe, watching her fold clothes with careful precision. You don't have to move to Queens. I bought you an apartment. Upper West Side, 3 bedrooms, close to Columbia, so you can finish your degree. Her hand stilled. You bought me an apartment. And set up accounts for you and the kids. College funds, living expenses, everything. You'll never have to worry about money again. She set down the shirt she'd been folding and turned to face him fully. That's very generous. It's what we agreed on. Right, the contract. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I fulfill my year. You fulfill your payment. Business transaction complete. Something about the way she said it made him angry. What else would it be? She stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head. Nothing. You're absolutely right. Thank you for your generosity, Vincent. You've been more than fair. She went back to packing, dismissing him, and he left feeling like he'd just failed a test he didn't know he was taking. Sunday dinner was tense. The kids picked up on it, kept looking between Vincent and Nia, like they were watching a bomb that might explode. Maya finally broke the silence. Are we really leaving on Tuesday? She asked quietly. That's the plan, Nia said, pushing food around her plate. But I don't want to leave, Jordan said. My friends are here. My team made it to playoffs. Can't. We stay? We've imposed on Vincent's hospitality long enough, Nia said. He's been incredibly kind, but this was always temporary. Imposed? Vincent set down his fork. Is that what you think? That you've been imposing? Haven't we been? She met his eyes, challenging. You signed up for a quiet arrangement. You got 3 teenagers, media scandals, and a wife who questions your every business decision. That's not what you paid for. Terrell stood up abruptly. I'm not hungry anymore. He left, and Maya and Jordan followed, leaving Vincent and Nia alone at the table. Talk to me, Vincent said. Really talk to me. What's going on? I'm trying to make this easier for everyone. Her voice cracked slightly. The contract ends Tuesday. We both knew this day was coming. It's time for me to take my family and let you get back to your life. What if I don't want you to go? She laughed, but it was bitter. Vincent, you've been crossing days off your calendar. I've seen it. You're counting down to freedom, just like I am. He had been crossing off days, but not for the reason she thought. Each X marked another day he'd failed to tell her how he felt, another day closer to losing her. You've got it wrong, he said. Do I? You've been so careful, Vincent. Keeping distance, never touching me unless necessary. Always the perfect gentleman. Making sure this stays exactly what we agreed it would be. A business arrangement. That's not. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. I was trying to give you space. You came here out of desperation, not choice. I didn't want you to feel pressured or obligated. I wanted you to be free to leave if that's what you wanted. Well, congratulations. I'm leaving. She stood up, started clearing plates with sharp, angry movements. I'll be out by Tuesday afternoon. Vincent caught her wrist as she passed him. What if I asked you to stay? As what? Your employee? Your charity case? She pulled her hand free. I've been those things. I won't keep being them. As my wife. My real wife. She froze, plate still in her hands. Don't do this. Don't make this harder than it already is. Nia, look at me. He waited until she did. I love you. I'm in love with you. I have been for months, probably since that first night when you showed up in rags and still managed to hold your head high. You've changed everything about my life, made me see the world differently, made me want to be a better person. And the thought of you leaving is killing me. Tears started streaming down her face. You don't love me. You love who you've turned me into. The project you fixed. That's garbage, and you know it. He took the plate from her hands, set it down. You were never broken. You didn't need fixing. You needed someone to see what was already there. And I see you, Nia. Your strength, your intelligence, your fierce love for your family. The way you fight for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. How you make every room warmer just by being in it. That's not something I created. That's who you are. She covered her face with her hands. I can't do this. I can't stay here wondering if you're with me out of obligation or guilt. Or, then don't wonder. He pulled her hands down, held them tight. Tuesday, the contract ends. Wednesday, if you want, we can get married again. For real this time. Not because of desperation or money or contracts. Because I choose you and you choose me. Or you can take the apartment and the money and leave, and I'll respect that. But I need you to know that losing you would be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm scared, she whispered. What if this feeling is just gratitude? What if 6 months from now, you realize I'm not worth all the trouble I bring? Nia, you are worth everything. Every scandal, every awkward dinner party, every challenge to my worldview. You've made my life bigger and better and more real than it's ever been. He cupped her face in his hands. But I won't trap you here with pretty words. Take the next 5 days. Think about what you really want, not what you think you owe me or what's practical. What do you actually want? She leaned into his touch, eyes closed. I want to stay? God help me. I want to stay so badly. But I don't know if it's because I love you or because I'm terrified of being poor again. Those things can both be true. You can love me and also appreciate security. That doesn't make your feelings less real. She opened her eyes. When did you get so wise? Since I met someone who asks hard questions and doesn't accept easy answers. Monday morning, Nia left early before Vincent woke up. She left a note saying she needed time to think and would be back by Tuesday evening. The apartment felt empty without her, and Vincent understood for the first time what his life would be like if she really left. The thought made him physically ill. The kids were worried. Terrell pulled him aside. If she leaves, it's because you let her think she doesn't belong here. Fix it. I'm trying. Try harder. Tuesday came. Vincent had the papers ready. Divorce papers that would end their contract marriage. And new papers, a prenuptial agreement that protected her assets and gave her everything she'd need, with a blank marriage license underneath. Her choice. Freedom or forever. She came home at 6 in the evening. The kids scattered to their rooms, giving them privacy. Nia looked exhausted but calm, like she'd fought a battle with herself, and finally reached a decision. Vincent slid the papers across the counter. Everything you were promised. Your freedom, your security, your future. All yours, no conditions. She looked at the documents for a long time. Then she pushed them back. I don't want freedom from you, she said quietly. I want freedom with you. I want messy Sunday dinners and arguments about your business ethics, and coming home to someone who sees me. Not the poor girl you saved, but the woman I'm becoming. I want to build something real, not perfect, but real. Vincent's heart was hammering. You're sure? I spent 2 days thinking about who I am without you, and I realized I don't want to find out. You're not just security or gratitude or any of that. You're my partner, my best friend, the person who makes me want to be braver than I think I can be. She smiled through tears. I'm choosing you, Vincent. Not because I have to, because I want to. He crossed the space between them and kissed her like he'd been wanting to for months. Not gentle or careful, but real and messy and full of everything he'd been holding back. She kissed him back like she was claiming what had always been hers. They got married again 3 months later. Small ceremony at the literacy center in Harlem where Nia volunteered, surrounded by kids who'd learned to read because she believed in them. Her siblings stood beside her. His grandmother cried, something she claimed she never did. Rosa caught the bouquet. Nia finished her degree, then started a master's program in social work. Their foundation grew, helping hundreds of families stay together. Vincent restructured his entire business around ethical practices and discovered he could be successful and decent at the same time. The apartment that had once felt like a museum became a real home, loud and messy and full of life. Basketball games in the hallway, paint on the carpet, teenagers arguing about whose turn it was to do dishes. Perfect in its imperfection. Every year on Christmas Eve, they went back to the airport where Nia had first arrived. She'd stand in that same spot where she'd waited in rags, scared and desperate, and Vincent would take her hand. "You saved me that night," he'd say, and she'd smile and correct him. We saved each other. Because that was the truth nobody tells you about love. Sometimes it starts as desperation and obligation and carefully negotiated contracts. But if you're lucky, really lucky, it becomes something real, something chosen, something worth more than any amount of money in the world.